Hey everybody, Miss Dietrich here, giving you some help on the Chapter 8 Pan Balance Numbers task. So when you open this up in Google Classroom, make sure you read the directions. You want to click on your copy. So Mason was nice enough to let me have permission to view his copy of it. So this is his copy. So the first thing that you want to do when you open is you want to make sure you put your name in the little box. And let's look at the directions. Directions. Number 1, click on the link. So you're going to click on this blue link. And what will open is something that looks like this. Now, if it's slow to load, make sure you scroll down till you see the actual blue frame around a balance. If it's slow to load, then that you may have other things open. Some students are reporting that when their meet was open, that nothing would load for them. So you might have to do this after a live meet if you're trying to do this during class. All right, so that's first, to have that open. Number 2, think of a magic number. Square that number, put your number in the red box. All right, so let's go back to the pan balance task. And the magic number I'm going to come up with, I'm going to think of the number 6. And to square it, I have to hit this button. See how it says x squared? I'm going to square it. So I just squared 6, and it shows you what it equals up here, which is 36. All right, so we've done that. Now the next part, if we read the directions, it says, think of an operation that you can do that would equal your number in the red pan. Put it in the blue box. Now I'm going to recommend that you do things that would be a multiply. So in this case, we want to find 2 factors of 36. So I'm going to choose 4 and 9. That would equal 36. I'm going to put that in the blue box. 4 times 9. And see how it balances out? All right, so that's my starting equation, and if it's in fact equal, then you'll see it populate over here in the balanced equations. All right, so what's the next step? Step 4, be sure your equation populates the balanced equations window. Mine did, so we did that. Step 5, create 4 more equations using your initial equation as the starting point, so we need 5 total. You must use each property of equality mentioned below. So let's look at what's addition property of equality. That's the equality property that states that if you add the same number to both sides of an equation, the 2 sides will remain equal. So if we go back to the pan balance, if I put something in here that I'm adding, that means that if I put it over here and add the same number, then the 2 things should remain equal. So I'm going to go back to the red pan, and let's put in, how about plus 8? Now, in order to get this to balance out again, that means that I have to put plus 8 in the blue pan to get it to balance out. Now, notice that it does. I put that in, and now the equation's balanced. Both sides of the equation equal 44. All right, so what's the next property on the list? It's subtraction property of equality. If you subtract the same number from both sides of an equation, the 2 sides will remain equal. So let's go back to our pan balance, and we're going to pick a number, whatever could be your favorite number. I'm going to pick, how about -4? -4. So let's go to the red pan. Let's subtract 4 from that side. And let's also subtract 4 from this side to get it to balance out. So it'll populate automatically in your balance equations if you're doing this correctly. So see, I have the -4 over here, and I have the -4 over here, and we can see that the 2 sides equal 40. All right, so now let's move on to the next equality property. So that's multiplication property of equality. If you multiply both sides of the equation by the same number, the 2 sides will remain equal. So in this example, they're showing multiply both sides, looks like by 4, but we're going to choose a different number. How about we multiply both sides by 2? So let's go to the red pan. I'm going to multiply this by 2. Which means I gotta multiply by 2 in this pan to get it to balance out. And it does, and we're back to the number 36, ironically. All right, so that takes care of multiplication. The last one we have to do is division. Division property of equality. That states that if you divide both sides of an equation by the same non-zero number, the 2 sides will remain equal. So how about we divide both sides by 12? So let's go to the red pan. I'm going to divide that by 12, which means on this side, I have to divide this by 12. and it evens out. So even though we have a decimal value. So I have all 5 of the properties that we were talking about. Addition, here we're adding 8. Subtraction, here we're dividing by 4. Multiplication, here we're multiplying by 2. And division, here we're dividing by 12. Now, by the way, just a little note. If I wanted to kind of undo that last operation, you know how we divided by 12? This is a good time to practice the idea of undoing things, or why opposites are important to understand. So you know how we just divided by 12 on both sides? What if I wanted to undo that? So if I want to undo that, the opposite of divide by 12 is to multiply by 12. So see how that brings us back to where we were? So I'm going to go over here, multiply by 12. Brings us back to where we were. That's a good thing to practice as well when you're doing this, but that's not part of the requirement. So now the next part of the task is we have to take a screenshot of our work. Now, how do you take a screenshot on a Chromebook? You need to find, it's usually above the 6 key. You're finding that button that looks like a little rectangle. If you press that at the same time you hit the control button, so here's another image of it. If you press this button and this button at the same time, it'll put it on your clipboard, and you'll see a little message pop up in the lower part of your screen that'll say something like copied to clipboard. Now, once you have it on your clipboard, then you hit Control Paste, or Control V rather, to paste it in. So before you paste it in, so here's Mason's, you want to first make sure that your cursor is flashing below the yellow paste here. And once your cursor is flashing, then that's the time when you hit the Control V. Now, if you want to crop it, which I'm going to recommend, when you crop it, because we don't need stuff over here, to crop it, you just use the crop tool, and I'm just going to grab it on the black line and squeeze that in. And then when you're done, you hit the crop button again. And then it's a good idea to just stretch that out to make it so I can see it and that you can see it. So I'm going to stretch that out. All right, now if you look at Mason's example, he chose as his magic number 3, and he squared that, which of course equaled 9. And he came up with 3 times 3 to be on the other side of the equation. He shows his addition, plus 2 on both sides. He shows subtraction, minus 7 on both sides. He shows the multiplication, times 6 on both sides. And then he shows the division. So he chose to divide by 5 on both sides. And in the end, the 2 sides equal 26. So that was a really good example. Now let's talk about if you don't have a Chromebook, if you have some other device and you have to take a screenshot. So let's say you're using a Windows device. Now, if you have the little Windows icon on the bottom, one of the tools that I use all the time, it's called Snip and Sketch. So if you don't have it on your taskbar like I do, then you might have to hunt for it, in your lineup of stuff over here, Snip and Sketch. So when you open that, now I'm going to open it from here, and you hit New, what it'll do is it'll open up this. And if you use the rectangle snip, so let's go back. Let's say I want to take an image of this. Then I would just go like that. And then it puts it on the clipboard. You choose this to copy it. See the little check? And then you go to your document. You put your cursor where you want it. So let's say I wanted it, right there. Get your cursor where you want it. And then you hit Control V on your clipboard, on your keyboard, to paste it where you want it, and then it'll appear. Now, another tool that you might want to look into that I use all the time, I'm not sure if you can get this on yours, but I have something called Fireshot, which is a Chrome extension. So for those of you who are interested in seeing if you can get that, now again, I don't know if your school account will permit this, but if you just do a Google search and just put in Fireshot, Chrome extension, and you go to the Chrome store and see if it'll let you add it. So if it will, see mine's on there, but yours would probably say something like add to Chrome. And if it allows you to do that, then I'm going to suggest you give that a try, because I use that all the time. When I'm on a web-based site, I take screenshots off of here. That's been really handy. So again, I don't know if that's going to work, but if you're on a Chrome, everybody's on their Chrome account when they're doing their schoolwork, that's a good one to consider having. All right, so if you, like Mason, check to make sure you have everything there, because you're supposed to have a minimum of, the 4 different properties shown. So if you're in a situation like Mason is where you have that shown for each, you have a line that has one of those properties on it, make sure you cover all of them, because remember the ones you have to cover are, do you have the addition property of equality? Do you have the subtraction property of equality? Do you have the multiplication property of equality? And do you have the division property of equality? And if you have all four of those for a total of 5 lines, because that does mention it up here, 5 total, then you're good to go. You can go ahead and hit turn in. All right, good luck finishing that up.